Hi, everybody, and welcome to the DRF Breeding Report. I'm Dan Ullman. This week, I'm joined by DRF's Joe Nevels to discuss last week's Fasig-Tipton July yearling sale. And Joe, as we take a look at the top 4 priced horses of this yearling sale, where immediately we see a 7-figure filly by Medaglia d'Oro, it's got to be a good sign for the overall health of this bloodstock market.
Yeah, it's something that you certainly don't see very often in the Fasig July sale. Let me pull my numbers up here. That was the highest. It was tied for the most expensive filly ever sold for that sale. 1982 El Bayan sold to H.T. Jones for $1 million. Sent out to England. It was the most expensive horse at the Fasig July sale since 2006, when Sheikh Mohammed bought Participate for $1.2 million. Participate never raced. But yeah, it was certainly a nice little uptick to the sale. It single-handedly ensured that the figures would be up. Prior to that, the sale-topping horse sold within the last 20 or so hits of the sale. And before that, things were trending pretty evenly. People were happy, but nothing was, everything was close to each other. Gross, average, median were maybe up a little, down a little, but pretty steady renewal. And then this ensured that everything was safely above last year's figures. So it's something that you have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it is exciting to see that people are willing to, go and dig their heels in at this kind of level, because it takes one person to bid, but it takes 2 people to run a price up. So clearly somebody else felt necessary to go after the horse at this price too.
Let's take a closer look at the pedigrees of these top 4 horses, beginning, of course, with that 7-figure yearling. We're going to take a look at her in the auction ring. She is by Medaglia d'Oro, a sire that excels with fillies and mares.
Absolutely. Medaglia d'Oro is one of those horses that you can always count on to, or almost always count on to, put in a strong showing at auction, especially yearlings, 2-year-olds. People love the fillies, like you said, so they're always great broodmare prospects. This one actually slipped a little under my radar. First full out of a stakes winner, a Malibu Moon mare, Hung the Moon. But she won her stakes races at Prairie Meadows and ran third in a stake at Fairgrounds. So in a catalog, the Fasig July catalog is one that's usually very physical heavy as opposed to page heavy, but there were a lot more pages that drew my attention. So this one really didn't ping for me when I was pulling out the horses, but as the day kind of went on, I kept hearing buzz. Oh, there's this Medaglia d'Oro filly that's going to do something near the end of the day, but you can never tell whether do something means, sell for a good price, or in this case, sell for a record-tying price. But, you can never argue with the Medaglia d'Oro. They're very popular, and rightfully so.
Medaglia d'Oro, of course, stands for a $150,000 stud fee at Darley, represented this year by 3 Grade 1 winners, all females: Songbird, New Money Honey, and Dickinson. And, of course, he was represented by Horse of the Year, the great filly, Rachel Alexandra. Let's take a look at this Orb colt in the ring. Orb out of an Archmare, Aurora Prospect. This is a nice Claiborne family.
Yeah, and people are going absolutely gaga for the Orbs at auction. He was among the top horses, among the top stallions of his crop as weanlings, yearlings, and then they really jumped up as 2-year-olds. It was fascinating to watch, because as yearlings, I really thought the Orbs needed time to grow into themselves. They seemed kind of long-legged, sort of a little, I don't know if I want to use the word gangly, but that's what I'm going to go with. But at 2 years old, they really matured into very strong-looking racehorses, much like Orb himself, and they sold excellent. Several, had a few top sessions, had some draw prices that you normally don't see out of a first crop sire. Usually the ones that go for the very high prices are a little more Provens, your Tappets, your Warfronts, your Medaglia d'Oros and such. But Orb was received very well. And like you said, you go back to one of those traditional successful families, and you put Orb on top, who's himself a product of a traditional successful Phipps Claiborne partnership operation, Stuart Janney in there too, and you can't go wrong.
Orb stands for $25,000 at Claiborne. What a pinhook. This horse sold for $55,000, this yearling, at Keeneland January, and 7 months later goes for $310,000. Let's take a look at this Into Mischief colt out of the Cherokee Run mare, Diamond Fancy Free. A horse that, really has a nice pedigree, considering that this dams a half to the multiple Grade 1 stakes winning 2-year-old First Samurai.
Yeah, you got instant stallion potential there with the First Samurai attachment there. And Into Mischief is very rapidly establishing himself as one of those stallions, like I mentioned with Medaglia d'Oro, that as soon as you see that name on the top of the page, you have to take the horse seriously as a potential horse that could bring decent to very good money at a horse auction. Into Mischief standing at Spendthrift Farm. He's got big runners coming up all over the place. Excellent family under this one. You go back even further, you get Cantheros is in the family, Geronimo, Ikigai. So lots of, it's a fun page. We've got Oprado again here. So, certainly one that seems to be worth the money at this point in the game.
Into Mischief stands for $75,000. He's got a couple of graded stakes winning 3-year-olds this year, Practical Joke and One Liner. And this colt, Into Mischief, out of a Cherokee run mare, same sire, broodmare sire Nick, as One Liner. Let's talk about that McLean's Music colt. McLean's Music has just sort of exploded onto the scene as a stallion. He stands for $8,500 at Hill and Dale. But what a year thus far with Preakness winner Cloud Computing.
I was very interested to see how the public was going to receive the McLean's Music in this sale because of that, because McLean's Music entered the 2-year-old season as, he's kind of a mid-level stallion prospect in terms of what people were expecting out of them. McLean's Music only raced once. It was at a sprint distance. It was an absolutely brilliant race, but we never got to see what he was fully capable of. And he was in the upper middle echelons in terms of average sale price. And the runners and the babies had a lot to prove, and they've clearly, he's got a classic winner now, so that certainly moves the needle a lot. And he had McLean's Music had 2 yearlings in the top 10 for Fasig July in terms of prices this year. Also had one go for $260,000 to John Oxley, so that's a buyer that you like to get a little seal of approval on your stallion. So, it's what you like to see.
$120,000 buyback as a Keeneland November weanling goes for $270,000. And while as a half to our pretty boy Floyd, who is a grade 2 place dirt sprinter, there's a lot of turf in this family and a lot of stamina.
Yeah, absolutely, which is probably something that they were looking for when crossing the mare with McLean's Music, because like we said, all we know about McLean's Music is that he's a heck of a sprinter. He probably did have 2 turns in him somewhere, but all we had on paper is that, boy, this horse can go 2 turns. So you'd probably want to try him with something that's got a little bit of distance to him, a little bit of stamina to balance that out. And if it turns out that he did have a little, hidden stamina in him that he never got to use, then, boy, you got something there.
Let's talk about a colt with a big pedigree page that you were really interested in, this Tis Now colt out of Passé by Dixie Union.
Yeah, this was, of the horses that I pulled, this was my MVP. I've always been a sucker for a big, stout Tis Now. I was a huge fan of IRAP when he was going through the yearling sale process. I loved Majesto when he was going through the yearling sale process. I love being able to walk up to a Tis Now baby shoulder and look up. I come from a draft horse background, and I've never been able to shake that. If I see a horse that I walk up to and go, wow, this guy's a monster, I will stick with him. And this one actually had the page to back him up too. It's a half to grade 1 place multiple stakes winner, Wonder Gal, who herself was a daughter of Tis Wonderful, who is the son of Tis Now. So you're going back to the source with the cross. This horse absolutely lived up to it physically, showed fantastic. Ended up getting bought by Windstar Farm and China Horse Club, so you know that this horse is going to get every opportunity to get put in big spots and succeed. And I think they got themselves a very nice horse here.
Went for $260,000, and I really love the balance in this pedigree. You mentioned Wonder Gal, who could do a little bit of everything. This dam's a half-sister to Social Queen, who was a multiple graded stakes winner on the turf. You go all the way back, you've got Perfect Drift, the winner of the Stephen Foster. So, again, purchased by Windstar. Tis Now, of course, stands at Windstar for $60,000. Perhaps this is one to watch as he matures late in his 2-year-old season onto his 3-year-old campaign.
I'll have my eye on him.
Let's take a look at one of the younger stallions that really had a big sale, Cairo Prince. So we're going to take a peek at Cairo Prince winning the Grade 2 Nashua Stakes in his second lifetime start, and he won this race fairly easily with a 90 Beyer speed figure. He was a multiple graded stakes winner. It's a shame that injury compromised his career and ended it after only 5 starts, but he's gotten off to a really nice start with his first crop yearlings.
Yeah, they were very well supported in the weanling market. And it was an absolute coming out party for him at Fasig July. There was a point in the sale where Cairo Prince had the most expensive yearling of the sale and tied for the second most expensive. So clearly buyers are liking what they're seeing here. You see a lot of pinhook buyers in this sale. Let me see. JMS, actually JMS is a end user, so that one I'll probably see on the racetrack. And the other one will be pinhook, the Cairo Prince out of Turtle Beach. That one went to WCI Investments for $265,000. I spoke to Justin Cassie, who signed the ticket on that one, and that one will be a pinhook, will be sent down to Ocala for Kieran Dunn, so we'll see more of that one in the sale season next year. But yeah, good season, good start for Cairo Prince. He's got some up at Fasig Saratoga. You got to be excited if you're standing him at Air Stud right now. And yeah, again, he's a son of Pioneer of the Nile too, which Pioneer of the Nile is very popular right now with American Pharoah doing what he did. The Empire Maker line is red hot right now. Things are looking good for Cairo Prince.
Joe, great analysis as always. We really appreciate it. Folks, you could follow Joe on Twitter at DRF Nevels, and for all of the latest breeding news, please follow at DRF Breeding. We'll see you next week on the DRF Breeding Report.